Welcome back. A man is receiving a Medal of Valor in Des Moines from Governor Kim Reynolds for the heroic effort he made to save the life of a man and his dog in Siouxland.
A.J. Craig lives in Sioux Falls now and works as a welder, but comes back to help on the family farm that's near Cylinder in Palo Alto County. On November 28th, he was working on the farm when he realized there was smoke coming from an old house that belonged to an elderly neighbor. Then he called the fire department and went to that house to investigate. With black smoke billowing from the house, he was able to provide a hand from a window and save the man and his dog from that fire. Craig says he knew in the moment he needed to spring into action.
I knew what needed to be done, and I mean, if I would have waited minutes, everything would have been totally different. So I didn't really think about it. I just did what needed to be done and took care of it.
Now, that ceremony will take place Monday at the Iowa State Capitol Rotunda at 10 o'clock on Monday morning.